Welcome to Secrets for an Inspirational Life with Mimi Novic, the place where every heart tells its story. Whether it's inspiration, courage or hope you need, you've come to the right place. Sit back and enjoy the journey with us. Subscribe below to be sure you don't miss future episodes.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Secrets for an Inspirational Life. How are you all today? I hope you are meeting lots of beautiful people that are inspiring you in some way. And I think it's so important that it doesn't actually have to be a person. It can be an animal even that can inspire you to the point that it can actually change your life. And I had an incident, sort of a story recently, which I'll tell you all about another time. But it is something about the heart connection. And it doesn't really matter whether it's an animal or a person. You know, when you've met that being, let's call it like that you have some real soul connection. And these types of connections are real and they're actually rare. But sometimes we are afraid to take the chance. Whatever life may throw at us, I think it's important that we give people the chance to come into our lives and maybe even animals to come into our lives, because you never really know how it can change your life for the better. So I would always say, keep an open mind, an open heart, because you never know who you're going to meet. That's for sure. And how amazingly they can fulfill something deep within you. Now, I am absolutely delighted and honoured today to welcome the very lovely Nicky Stevens. Nicky is the founder and CEO of the UK-based charity International Aid for the Protection and Welfare of Animals, and one of its exciting fundraising initiatives, Adventures for Animals. Nicky's inspiration to set up the charity came from her background as a veterinary nurse. She first established the UK charity in 2009 to be able to provide a better future for animals in need. Since then, she and her team have done incredible work, rescuing tens of thousands of cats and dogs across 2 continents. What began as a desire to help one stray dog in the rainforests of Borneo has since expanded to helping over 30,000 dogs and cats who have needed veterinary support. Currently, she is focusing on 3 core projects in Borneo, Penang Island and Romania, with a range of additional support programs worldwide. Today, she shares her absolutely incredible journey. Welcome, dear Nicky.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And, I'm going to roll out the red carpet for you because it's an absolute honour to have you here, Nicky.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. Well, it's an honour to be invited, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. Now, how are you today? First, I must always ask my guests that. How are things in your
good.
sort of neck in the woods, as they say?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm a little bit achy today, just from training for one of our adventures, Mount Kilimanjaro, which we're doing in September to raise funds for the charity. But yeah, other than that, I'm all good. How are you?
I'm fine. And I'm absolutely excited to have you here and share this time, and especially with the listeners, because your life is so inspirational. And you mentioned Kilimanjaro. Tell us a little bit about that before we go back to the beginning of how it all started, because that's quite an opening line. You are going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, so I'm doing in September with a group of 12 other animal lovers. We're going to be taking on the Lamoshu route of Kilimanjaro, which is going to take about 8 days. So that's in September. And then in November, we have a 100-kilometer trek across the Sahara. And then in February, we're doing a winter summit of Mount Toubkal. And we have a whole load of other adventures for next year as well. So we've got treks in Thailand, we've got treks to Petra, we have treks across the Grand Canyon, cycling around Lake Balaton in Hungary. We have lots, Machu Picchu, so lots and lots, and that's all within one of our fundraising initiatives, which is Adventures for Animals.
Now, Adventures for Animals, is that part of the charity that you have anyway?
Yeah. So it's an initiative within IAPWA, and so it's a Facebook community. So anyone that would like to find out more about the adventures that we offer can just go on Facebook, look up Adventures for Animals, and then they can join that community. But we have a whole range of different treks there, and ultimately what people do is they sign up, they take part in an adventure of a lifetime, and whilst they're doing it, they raise funds through getting sponsored or other fundraising activity, and it makes a massive difference to the lives of the animals that we care for every year.
I'm sort of left speechless, and that's not usual for me, but absolutely not. But when I'm listening to you and this fantastic idea of Adventures for Animals, so basically people are doing treks across the world in the places that you've mentioned, and with it they can get a sponsorship, so that it's a way of raising monies for your charity.
Absolutely.
And it's a nice way, it's a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, people get to, they get to meet other animal lovers. They get to have an incredible trip. Lots of, memories, are made. But ultimately, they do get to make a massive difference to the lives of animals. And there are lots of people, out there that love both adventures and animals. So it's really kind of connecting people in that community. But it first started, it was before the pandemic, actually, because within our first project in Borneo, I'd just taken a few people I knew on a trip whereby we'd climbed Mount Kinabalu, which is the highest mountain in Southeast Asia. And we did a little trip around. So we did some whitewater rafting. We did a few other bits, camped out in the rainforest. And everyone set up a Just Giving page and they raised some funds. And it ended up really raising, quite a significant amount of, money to help animals. So we then repeated that after that. And we did a trek in Romania, which, some parts of Romania are just stunningly beautiful. And we've actually got the same trek that we're doing this October as well, if anyone's interested in that. So we did a trek in Romania, which is fabulous. Once again, raised some funds. And then in 2019, we did the largest one, which was Everest Base Camp. So I went with, I think it was about 8. I think it was 8. It was 5 years. Blimey, I think it was 8 people that came along on that, and once again, we raised a nice amount of money. And I remember thinking at the time, there's really something in this. There are lots of people that love animals, but also love nature and travel and adventure, and surely we can connect that. And then, of course, the pandemic, happened, and so all of those plans in terms of connecting people through travel kind of got put on hold. So we were just about to do Kilimanjaro. Just as the pandemic hit, we'd been organising that particular trip, so we just said, well, let's wait until all of that, all of that is behind us, and then we can reinstate that again. But I think initially after the pandemic, people were still a little bit nervous about travelling, so it's taken a little bit of time after that, I think, to get people's confidence up again in doing those kind of trips. So, Adventures for Animals was born last year in terms of the branding behind the name of Adventures for Animals. Before it was just me, and so doing, some adventures, and we've got over 1,400 members so far. So it's a closed Facebook community, just to kind of protect, the community. People can just search for it though under Adventures for Animals on Facebook, and then they can just ask to join, and then we'll just, approve them, and they can come into the community. And we have 6 amazing volunteer adventure coordinators who help me with looking after, those particular trips. And we have some wonderful agents. And essentially, each trip will have an adventurous element to it. So it has to be something whereby people would be able to set up a Just Giving page, or set up a Facebook fundraiser, or essentially trying to get sponsorship to doing something incredible. So whether or not it's, we have some trips we're organizing that are a little bit more extreme, things like Mont Blanc, but then we have other ones that are much shorter, Trek to Petra, or things in the UK as well. So we're hoping to have a trekking adventure in Scotland next year. We'll have the 3 Peaks. So we're kind of trying to just get a nice mix between UK adventures and short overseas adventures of maybe 3 or 4 days, and then some of the longer ones that might take around 2 weeks or so. But yeah, so far the response has been extremely positive. I think it's just really nice to be able to connect people that, love animals and want to do something to make a difference, but don't always necessarily know how. So this is a way in which, they can join a community of like-minded people, have incredible memories, and even join a trip every single year if they want to with us, and kind of be part, I guess, of helping us to leave a legacy for animal welfare, through the adventures they join us on.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, because it's like having an adventure, an adventure of a holiday, with the added benefit of actually like-minded people, like you said, raising funds for this amazing charity. And I want to ask you, Nicky, do you have, because for people listening out there, do you have to be very fit for all of these adventures, or are there sort of degrees of fitness?
Yeah, there are absolutely different degrees. So we do have some adventure coordinators in the team that are experienced mountaineers, and they're very experienced hikers. And we've got lots of people in the in the community that also want something a bit more extreme. So they are going to want the likes of Mont Blanc, or even going up to, mountains like Denali in Alaska, and really kind of pushing themselves with things like some of the ridges in Scotland. And we want to have something in there that can, that those people are going to connect with. But also, having said that, we recognize there's a lot of people that, it's the mid-range, adventures from Machu Picchu and things that are still quite extreme in their own right. But most people could do with just a little bit of hiking training, and spending maybe 3 or 4 months beforehand, building up the hikes, and something then can they can tick up as a real bucket list adventure. But we have some as well that are short trips, sometimes that are maybe just week long, trips that aren't going to be, quite as strenuous. And it's not just trekking as well. So we've got, we're just about to launch one with Lake Balaton over in Hungary, which is going to be a cycle ride. And there's going to be lots of other things coming out there as well. So we're going to have things like skydiving, so lots of activities, paragliding, and things like the High Line in the Lake District. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's
so they're all adrenaline filled type of
lots of different things. So the aim is going to be to have some kind of day events that people could do, right up to day or weekend hikes. A lot of the adventure coordinators as well are going to be putting on UK hikes. So if anyone's maybe ticking off the Wainwrights in the Lake District, or they just want to come along for a nice, day hike, they can obviously join some of those as well. And it's worth me mentioning as well, actually, there's also a sister group to Adventures for Animals on Facebook, and that's called I Love Hiking and Dogs. And exactly as the name suggests, it's for those people that like hiking, but probably more not as extreme as maybe Adventures for Animals. So they love dogs, they love hiking, and within that group, it's a really lovely community. We've got, I think it's about 1,200 members in that one as well now. And what we're aiming to do through that one is to build up a range of UK events where people can come along with their dogs. So that one is really dog friendly. Come along with your dog, and every year we have a Walk for Paws annual fundraiser, which is another way in which we can raise funds. But lots of people in that group on a daily basis will just post about maybe the local walk they've just been on, or just a cute photo of their dog. And we have monthly competitions on there for the post that's got the most engagement. We have a pup of the month that goes on our banner on the profile page. So it's a really lovely community of people that love hiking and dogs. So we found that a lot of people have joined I Love Hiking and Dogs and Adventures for Animals. But obviously one of them is more related to hiking with your dog, and the other one is more about doing a whole range of different levels of adventures, but raising funds for other dogs, and other cats that need support.
Is it just dogs and cats, or is it other animals as well, Nicky?
It's animals as well. So within our own projects, and cats that are our core projects, our 3 core projects in Borneo, Penang Island and Romania. Historically, they've always been focused on dogs and cats, and mostly stray dogs and cats as well. Although sometimes there have been some nurturing campaigns where it's been supporting owned animals, in the community. But within our support programs, there's a whole range of other animals that we help. So we've got a support program over in Tanzania, which is helping protect donkeys from the skin trade. We have illegal wildlife trafficking raids, which is mostly focused on pangolins. But also some other wild animals as well. And over the years, we've helped, a range of other species, from, supporting a sun bear sanctuary with a donation, through to supporting an elephant orphanage in Zambia with some donations. So our range of support programs have really enabled us to kind of expand on the number of species, the number of animals we can actually help. But through our own core projects, I suppose our specialism has been what would be defined as being humane dog and cat population management. So it's essentially going into areas whereby there may be inhumane population management methods with stray dogs or stray cats, and we have provided an alternative to that, and worked quite closely within the community and the government there to be able to implement that, instead of, for example, dog culls, which are obviously practiced in quite a few countries, worldwide.
I heard about that. I was so distressed recently about hearing that, and I wanted to ask you: is there anything that you can do with certain governments in order to prevent that type of thing for cats and dogs that are just being killed inhumanely, just to get them off the streets?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it is every country has its own way of dealing with dogs and cats, and in a lot of countries, the dogs and cats, if they are on the streets, they'll end up going to a pound. It's slightly, well, in terms of the dogs anyway, and if they're not claimed within a certain period of time, they are normally euthanized. But obviously the way in which that happens varies depending on countries. So we've all seen dog culls or animals having their lives being taken in ways that we definitely wouldn't consider to be humane euthanasia. We've all seen it in the news and things like that, and it's certainly distressing to see. I mean, ultimately, the solutions for, stray dogs and stray cats, it's kind of, it's really a whole program of of solutions to the problems that exist as a result of, stray dogs and cats. And it's all wrapped up within what we call humane dog and cat population management. So, for example, with humane dog population management, there's a whole range of different strategies. So you will be looking at sterilization, campaigns, because ultimately you want to be reducing the number of puppies born on the streets. So that is one aspect, but it's about doing it in such a way as well that it's very targeted, and it's done to certain scientific methodology, which basically essentially is going to make it as effective as possible for reducing, the number of puppies that are going to be born. So that's one aspect of it. And some projects that are looking at, dog and cat population management, they might, due to funding, due to, capacity within the team, they may well just focus purely on those sterilization campaigns. And that's what they deal with. Others will add on additional solutions as well. So they may well provide some veterinary care to some of the dogs, struggling on the streets. Some will also look at vaccination programs. So that might be obviously the general dog vaccine. It might be rabies vaccinations as well, if that's appropriate. Some will be looking for adoption or foster care initiatives. So where you do have dogs that are struggling on the streets, they can't just be, you can't just have a sterilization program, put them straight back on, if they're really struggling or if they're a tiny puppy, so having adoption and foster care initiatives, embedded within the program obviously helps to deal with that. And ultimately you need to look at the root cause, of the problem, and a lot of it does come down to human abandonment, of dogs, and so it's really important to, look at the educational side of things and to look at human behaviour change initiatives and have them woven within the project. So essentially, what you are trying to do is, rather than do a sticky plaster approach to a problem, you are, essentially trying to genuinely create a better future for the dogs, and cats as well. If you also deal with, the cat side of things too, you're trying to really create a better future for, the strays and even the owned, companion animals as well in that particular region. But it's quite complex because you've got a whole range of different stakeholders rather, within the entire project. So, you've got the government, you've got the community, you've got the sanctuaries, you've got the feeders, you've got a whole range of different people that all kind of share, kind of the responsibility, really. So it's a lot of it, as well as about obviously being able to bring everyone together for that one goal, which is, essentially to be able to, have a humane dog and cat population management, strategy in place in that country.
Yeah. And is that something that you yourself organise along with your network?
Yeah, so certainly with our first project in Borneo, that was something where I was, initially attending a lot of government meetings and liaising with them to present to them about the humane dog and cat population management strategies and how they could be implemented. And that was in conjunction with a local sanctuary that we were supporting at that particular time. So by both of us, buddying up, for want of a better description, and being able to target that together, it was very effective. And over in Penang, the government over in Penang Island contacted me, and they were very open about wanting to change, about the fact that this was how they were dealing with the stray dog issue, but they wanted to change. They wanted our support. So that then started a whole period of discussions about what humane dog management looked like, and then it started with being able to recruit a project director out there, and we have the most incredible project director out there, Chong Kun Yin. She's incredible, and she's been able to take forward now IAPRA Penang, which is now set up as a separate entity in its own right in country, and so through the government, the entity that has now been set up in IAPRA in the UK, it's kind of it's all of us together within what's called an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding. It's essentially an agreement that just shares the commitment and responsibilities of all parties. But within that particular project, there's just over 6,500 dogs have been through that since it was started. So the dogs previously were, there were dog culls, on the island, unfortunately, previously. And since we took over in 2017, 0 dogs have been culled in that way, which is
fantastic.
Testament to the huge amount of work that's gone in by the local team. Grounds, which we're really proud to support. But through that project and all the others, it's actually just over 41,000 animals that we've helped now across all of our projects and support programs.
This is amazing. This is so wonderful, and it really gladdens my heart. What a wonderful work you are doing. It is, and I am smiling because I'm thinking, my goodness, there's still some beautiful people out there, and you are one of them, because what an absolutely profound difference you are making through your work, through your dedication, through all of these things. How do you do it? But I don't know how you do it all. You must have an excellent team also to support you.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, my role in it is that, I've always been madly passionate about animals. And
you sound it, and I think that is the magic of it.
They're my life. I've always had a really deep connection to animals, and I've always been that people would probably refer to me as the animal lady, or things like that, or rescuing animals, or any animal that needs help always seems to find me in some way. And I'm sure a lot of people are like that, and it used to just really upset me, like it does so many other people. When you see things happening to animals, and it's just awful to see, and it would just really get to me on in an emotional level, and I would think, how can I help? How can I make a difference? How can I change this? And I think initially I didn't really have the answer to that. So I used to try and support other charities, and do skydives or do various challenges and try and raise money for them to make a difference. But it wasn't until I actually found myself out in Borneo on a trip there, and then the whole issues with the stray dogs, and finding one stray dog in the rainforest, and that just then started conversations around what was happening in that particular area. And to be honest with you, at that time, I think, a lot of founders are the same. I'd never set up a charity before. It's not like I had a handbook on it, and you make a decision in your mind that, I've got to do something about this. I've got to stop it. I've got to do something. But that particular stage, you can't possibly know, how hard it's going to be, and how challenging, and how much it's going to, completely absorb every single part of, you, and just how difficult, really, a lot of it a lot of it is. But where I was so lucky is, even though I had that initial, idea of I've got to do something, and then obviously setting up, the charity. After that, I was just, I was blessed with having people that felt the same as me. So people who probably under the same circumstances of me, being in the rainforest of Borneo, seeing the same thing, would have also turned around and said, I've got to do something with this. I've got to set something up. So, I mean, we've had over the years, we've had, so many vets and nurses who've come out to volunteer within the projects. We've got a lot of our team in the UK are volunteers. Our marketing director, our creative director, our auction for animals manager, who looks after all of our auctions on Facebook to raise funds. Our adventure coordinators within Adventures for Animals. All these people give their time, voluntarily, because they believe in what we're doing, and they're part of the team, and they're part of making, a difference. So I think, with most things, in life, it can start with one idea or one thought, or, one person an issue with that. But it from there, it just snowballs, and you end up, we genuinely couldn't do what we do without our supporters and without our donors, without people believing in us and donating. We wouldn't have the money to deliver the lifeline that, that we do. We wouldn't without the volunteers, because we're not a huge charity that hundreds of, salaried members of staff. We rely on volunteers, and we've been lucky as well on the ground to get people that are incredible, and are able to deliver those lifelines, and to partner with amazing support programs as well. So it really is, teamwork. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's been a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, because I think you do start off with that initial, the idea of, here's one dog or one cat I really want to help. And then it snowballs into, well, what about if I could help more than that? And at that particular time, you're not turning around to yourself and kind of saying, right, I'm going to take on 10,000 dogs in this area, and I'm going to take another 10,000. And I think in some ways, if your brain did know that, it would probably turn around and go, what? Sorry, 10,000 dogs. You can't do that. But because it's very, it kind of transitions, and, you just keep on going day after day with, new opportunities to make a difference, or just a challenge that comes up that you have to work through. And then eventually, you get that moment where you can look back, and you can almost, now just say, wow, we've helped over 41,000, animals, which is, How
does that make you feel?
I feel, it's a mix of things. I mean, firstly, I feel so proud of the team and everyone within the team, and I feel so happy that we've been able to help those animals. But on another side of things as well, there are so many more animals that need our help. So that's why I think it's almost like, the further you get into animal welfare, the more things you see that you wish you could unsee. But once you've seen them, you just you can't. It's just in your brain. And we get lots of people, probably because of our name, actually, international aid for protection and welfare of animals. I think a lot of other charities worldwide will type in international aid for charities, and we get a lot of organizations contacting us by email saying, please, can you help? And there's the most horrendous videos and photos, and just you feel for them, because it takes me right back to when I've seen things, and I've just it just destroys you seeing
How do you deal with that? Because recently I had a story about a dog, and I'm sort of devastated, and I keep saying to myself, Mimi, you can't do this. This is not your thing, because I just get so emotional. So if I can help in another way, I will. But I can't see these videos. I just can't. It sort of gave me sleepless nights, Nicky.
Yeah, it does. It does.
I don't know. I really stand in awe that you are able to know about these things, and actually, in a way, like a warrior, sort of cut through with that sword all the horribleness in order to get through to the root cause and to help all these animals. How do you do it day in, day out?
I really have my moments to be really honest, with you. I've had moments where some things that I've seen have just absolutely broken me, and I've just been in literally a sobbing mess, and I've wished I hadn't seen it. I have had moments where you can go into a dark place sometimes and almost just think, hate the world, and you can just and you have to be very, very careful that you don't get into a place where you feel that all humans hate animals and that there's no hope, and it's just it's an awful world to be in because there's all this cruelty and all this neglect, and you see so much need. So I think I've been to those places, and you have to try and use that energy to kind of catapult you into trying to make a difference, because if I don't see those things, it's better for me, but it's not any better for the animal. And I think it's just I think you just have to try and really take care of your own emotional and mental health, I think, within animal welfare. I mean, not just within animal welfare, you see it in other sectors as well, compassion fatigue, but it's very real. And you see lots of vets, nurses, people within, sanctuary environments, and when you take off, that, you open your eyes to it, and you see the reality of suffering. There are moments where you really wish you could just kind of turn your head away and never have seen it, because it's heartbreaking. But I do think in those moments, having those reality checks as to exactly how things are, once you have your moment of just being human and just having an emotional reaction to that afterwards, I think it is that case of just saying, right, okay, what problem am I seeing here? What solution can I implement that will make a difference, not only in the short term, but also in the long term? And making sure within the team as well that you're really looking out for each other in terms of, compassion fatigue. And I think that's one of the reasons why we decided to do these support programs, because, I mean, we're a small charity, so some people may well think, well, you've got your own projects going on, your own core projects. What are you doing kind of, supporting, other charities? Not like you're a big, massive UK charity, but I think because we do get these emails through, quite often, and it's, I really connected with those, and I really resonate with them, because I can just feel and sense that it's that desperation of being, this is what's going on, and I desperately need advice, or I desperately need some funds, or can you just help in any way? And I think sometimes, even if it's a case of saying, I hear you, I get it, and building networks within animal welfare so people don't feel that they're dealing with that alone. I mean, on a very bare minimum is something, but sometimes there could be some advice you could give them that might help prevent them sometimes, making, going down the wrong road, or making mistakes like you have, because everyone that sets up charities, they can look back and see a whole variety of things and go, oh, I wish I'd have done that, or I wish I'd have done this, because it's all a journey. So sometimes, being able to, impart that knowledge to other people that are maybe just starting out with setting up a charity, and, and being able to provide some support, is great. But I think as well, one of the things that I've really learned is that it's so easy sometimes to even go into some really struggling sanctuaries and things like that, and you can go into them and you can see things that are far from how you would ideally like them to be, and it's very easy to look at all those kind of situations and be like, well, why are the animals living like this, or why is that like this? And but I think sometimes the more you understand about these situations, the more you understand how these things can just snowball. And a lot of people start out with good intentions, and they just kind of end up, they end up kind of getting overwhelmed, and it all ends up to be a bit of a mess. And I think now, through the years that I've been doing this, I feel I have become a much more compassionate person. I think where humanity comes from, because I don't think necessarily things are always as clear cut or as easy, simple rather. Service, I think, in a lot of these countries, it is quite difficult, and that's how we always try and proceed with our projects, because we live in the UK, we live in an area where there aren't stray dogs everywhere all on the streets, but the reality is that if you are living in a country and stray dogs are barking all throughout the night, and then you go to take your child out in the morning, there's packs of dogs outside your gate, and and everything else like that. It's a very different environment to how we live here. So you can see that sometimes through things like that, the community starts getting desensitized to dogs being how we see dogs, and start seeing them as being something that's causing them concern in their life. And then complaints start going through to the government, and then the government don't know what to do because they don't know about humane dog population management. So then they potentially go down other routes, and it's just it's sometimes just a lot of animal welfare. It all comes from kind of I think a lot of the solution with it is to kind of go into these situations, try and be as compassionate as possible, try and understand how you've got to that situation, what the problems are, how you've got there, and then who all the stakeholders are in that whole situation that are responsible for this, and then trying to come up with solutions. So any negative emotions I've experienced in the past, I've tried to channel them.
That's important, isn't it? Because otherwise you would end up not liking anyone, not talking to anyone, and it becomes a very fine line of where somehow we can become, at the point, seeing all these barbaric things that humans can do, hating humans. And that's not the point, because there are so many beautiful humans out there as well. But it's so difficult, I think. And what you do that you haven't given up is it's astounding.
I think, I think as well, I think it's very difficult to try and take people on a journey whereby they're going to show more compassion towards animals if you come at it from a place of anger. And I think that's one of the hardest things that I have found within animal welfare. I think sometimes is it's that initial emotional reaction that it's very normal that you have, with the situations. But I think it never normally ends well, does it? You go into any situation with anger, the other person isn't going to turn around and go, oh, wow, thank you for really screaming at me and being really angry. I'm going to really listen to you now. It just doesn't work. I mean, it makes us feel a lot better. And I have been very angry at points, various points over the years, and I've had to take myself off into a room and have a bit of a word with myself and try and bring myself back to, being balanced again, so I'm not projecting that anger others, and I certainly haven't always got that right at all. It's been a journey for me, but I think if you can go into a situation with understanding and trying to be compassionate, you're more likely to get listened to, and to actually try and foster compassion for others, if you're matching that energy. And I think just always being aware as well that there are so many people that love animals. And I think that's where certain fundraising initiatives like Adventures for Animals are just brilliant as well. I think, for me, it's a really positive way in which you can raise funds, and actually bring some kind of happiness into is otherwise, to be honest, a situation where I wish my charity didn't exist. I genuinely wish it didn't exist. I wish I'd never had to set it up, because if it didn't exist, it would mean that there were no animals that actually needed that, that level of help. And it's sad, really, that there are so many animal welfare organisations that need to exist, because they have such a hard time and there are so many suffering. But I think, I think that's what we try and aim to do, is we try and kind of provide, there'll be lots of people that can look at that footage, through our appeals and things like that, and they can see dogs with some wounds, or they can see other bits. And, if they're able to do that, and that's how they can connect to it and they support us in that, it's so appreciated. But we also understand that it's tough. It's tough to look at that stuff. So if someone, prefers to be able to do that in another way, we want to give them, opportunities to be able to do that. Because otherwise, it is, as you said earlier, it's tough to see. It's really, really tough to see.
It is tough. And I'm thinking about the way that you talk, Nicky, and everything that you have done. This must come from a deeper place inside of you, that it's not a job, it's a calling. Because there is no way, I don't think, that you would have been able to achieve so much across the continents, really, unless it was something deep inside of you that, in a way, you live for.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone that's kind of, set up a charity, or, I mean, in some ways, even set up any type of organization, it's got to be something within you that really, that really makes you want to do that. But, initially when I first came back from Borneo, and I'd seen the situation, my first thought wasn't, I'm going to set up a charity. My first thought was, well, there's going to be a charity in the UK that are focusing on dogs in this part of the world, and I'm going to find them out, and then I'm going to jump out of a plane or do loads of silly, crazy things and raise lots of money and help them. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do, because I'd seen something, I didn't like it, and I wanted to do something to try and help. And that was the first thought that kind of came into my mind. It was only by researching it and realised that there was loads of brilliant work going on in that part of the world in terms of wildlife, and orangutans and various other animals, loads of committed organisations, but there was no one internationally that was focusing on dogs. Dogs primarily was what we were looking at before we then started doing some work with cats as well. And I was a little bit at that crossroads in my life where it's just kind of like, do I really do this? Do I set up a charity, or can you forget it and just do something else with your time and take up salsa? I don't know, just do life and just kind of because it happens all the time. It's kind of a person goes out on holiday, sees dog, feels upset, and and you're like, am I really going to do this? But I just couldn't turn away from it, and it was just, I had to do something. It was just, it would never have sat right with me if I had just have turned around and said, well, this happens in every country. Well, there's probably nothing I can do.
It's sort of bigger than you. Sometimes something in your life, because they say is bigger than you, but actually it's not. It's something that encompasses who you are, and it's actually part of who you are. And I'm convinced that people who have such a passion, such as yourself, with what you do, have this part of their, I don't know, their whole being, their whole essence of who they are as a personality, that has this huge, as I said, it's a calling, it's a vocation, it's something that is on a different level, really, because for you to be able to achieve such great things, it's more than luck, isn't it?
I think, to be honest, it's just it's a lot of I would say it's a lot of grit, and I wouldn't say it's just grit by me. I would say everyone in the team, shares that commonality. They all have grit. And I think it's just about not kind of giving up. And to me, there's so many similarities as well with things. So it's probably why I like mountaineering and hiking, because I think there's a lot of similarities between Adventures for Animals and IAPRA. I mean, doing something like Kilimanjaro, it's not a walk in the park. It's not comfy. You're not
at all
comfy bed on the way up, and then going for a nice little wander around the park, and having sitting down, having a nice packed lunch. You're just being all comfortable, it's difficult, and to be able to, and reach the summit, it's kind of, you need that grit to push through, and then you get rewarded at the top, obviously, for that hard work and effort. And I think a lot of things with animal welfare, are the same. It's, it's challenging, it's difficult, it's emotional, it's, you're always trying to balance, having the right strategies in place that you need to be able to effectively run an organization from a project perspective, in terms of, ways of fundraising and raising awareness and everything else, trying to balance all of that with essentially the emotional part, of yourself as a human, which is, just
it's a fine balance.
Finds it difficult, and it definitely is. Every day is just kind of balancing different things, but it's just I think you've just got to have that kind of mindset where kind of the word no isn't really in your vocabulary, and I've always been that way. I remember once I was I'm not built for running. I'm not got a runner's physique, and I'm not a natural runner at all. And I remember turning around and saying to someone once, I'm going to start running, I think. And they looked at me and laughed and said, you're not a runner. And I said, well, I can be if I want to be. I said, I'm going to go out now, and I'm probably only going to be able to do about 5 miles, I imagine, because I'm probably not that fit. Anyway, I only got to the end of my road and I was almost dying. And I was hunched over, huffing and puffing. And I got back and I said to them, oh God, I only got to the end of my road. And they turned around and said, well, it's all right. You can kind of train, and eventually you might, be able to do a mile and everything else. And what my brain said to me, the most obvious thing is, I said, well, I know what I'll do. I'll sign up to do the Edinburgh Marathon. And they laughed, and they were just like, how does your brain work like that? Because I'd barely been able to get down to the end of the road, but already my brain had just said, right, no, I'm not taking the no for an answer. I'm not even going to be thinking about the 5K or the 10K. I'm just, I'm going to sign up for a marathon, and that will give me, the motivation. I've always been that kind of way, way inclined. So I think, it's just, I think humans are incredible species, really, and I think we can do so much if we put our minds to it, whether it's as one person or as a group, as a team or whatever. I think if you just commit something and you say you're going to do it, and it's going to be difficult and going to be tough, and it's not going to be pretty at times, but if you just stick to it, eventually you will get those results, the rewards.
But where does your grit, as you call it, come from? Where does that determination come from when you've seen everything you've seen, been involved in all the things that you've been involved in, and you've got to make it through another day, and you've got to set up, Adventures for Animals, and you've got all these other things that you're doing? Where inside of you does that come from? Sheer determination to succeed?
By the way, sorry if you could hear my dog in the background. Bless him, he's just walking round me at the moment, so you might hear him tip-tapping on the floor. As I mentioned before, it's just my brain doesn't just seem to recognize, no. When I was out in Borneo within that first project, there were some stray dogs out there. We hadn't set up our program yet. There were stray dogs out there, and I knew that they were going to at some point probably be rounded up. I knew that with the lifespan of stray dogs. By the time we'd actually got everything in place and set up a project there, they might not be alive anymore. And I would connect with them and sit down and try and give them some food, and they would just come over and try and wag their tail, and it was heartbreaking. And I knew that, there were lots of animals around that time. I couldn't save all of them. It's not like I could hire a plane and get them all on a flight and come over. They're in one region. There are around 10,000 stray dogs in that one region we were looking at. So it's just, but I made a commitment. And that's always meant something to me when I commit to something. And I made a commitment to, the dogs that were there, no matter how hard it was seeing some of them on the streets and knowing that, we were desperately trying to set up the project, but it was going to probably take a few years to do so. I just vowed that I was not going to give up until I, was able to try and make, a difference. And in that first region, we ended up neutering 12,500 dogs and cats. And that was all obviously from wanting to help just one dog. But that was our first project that was on quite a small scale. We learned many lessons within that because we were a very young charity at the time. But we've now been given an opportunity to move over onto the east side of Sabah and build an animal welfare centre within Borneo that's going to take a lot of the learnings from the first project, but essentially going to be on a far larger scale. And that is something that, seeing the progression of that does make me feel really, really proud, from just, wanting to help one dog to then having that first project and, learning a lot through it, and now moving on to this second region where, we've got a really good opportunity to create, genuinely create a better future for the dogs and cats, in that region. And we've developed our team as well. We have some incredible project managers and people within our team that, are very experienced doing this type of work as well. And, we're confident that through this centre, which is going to be completed and all built and completed maybe 2025 or 2026, it's going to make a difference to the lives of thousands of animals, which is it's strange to think about when I think back now about the transition from seeing one dog and then coming home and thinking I'm going to jump out of a plane for another charity that's helping them, to then setting up the charity, to then helping 12,500, dogs in one region, and then kind of moving on to this now. It's the centre. But it's I'm just so proud of everyone who's kind of been part of IAPA, and grateful for everyone who's heard about, our story and wanted to be part of it, in some way, and wanted to help.
Amazingly beautiful. I absolutely love it. And really, what a fantastic job that you and your team do. And wow, really, really, really wow. As I listen to what you're saying, to what you've done, to what you're going to do, I think there is no way that we can just sit down and think there's nothing we can do. There is always something that we can do. And that's the important thing, that the message that really comes very strongly throughout this whole chat that we're having is every little bit counts. There is something that you can do, even in a small way. So, Nicky, what about people who want to help, who want to be part of the charity, who want to donate, or what sort of things can they do?
Okay, well, we've recently launched a living campaign called Living Legacy, and the whole concept of this is within IAPRA, we all do what we do because we want to leave a legacy in some way. We want to make a difference to the lives of animals, and I think a lot of people that donate and support animal welfare charities, they feel the same. They want to make a difference. They want to save lives, but the word legacy is often used in terms of the different difference you make after you've passed away and you're no longer on this world. Whereas we wanted to kind of flip that and say, actually, what about the difference you can make while you're here? And actually, while you're alive, how can you get more involved with, helping animals and help us to grow our tribe, and build more people that really care, really want to make a difference, because it's the power of the one person when that gets multiplied that really, really does, make the massive impact. So our Living Legacy campaign is based around regular donors, because as much as obviously as everyone donating to our pills and everything is absolutely brilliant, and it's amazing having people that, are happy to be able to, invest on a monthly basis, with us and really be part of the programs. It just makes such a big difference, to being able to run a sustainable charity, with the work we do. And that ranges from, £3 a month, which is kind of, what's that even £3 a month? I think it's, about coffee or something like that. So even for £3 a month, or whether it's £5 or whether it's £10 a month, it's about, joining us and being able to build that movement of people who really want to help us to build the Borneo Centre. They want to help to make sure that, dogs continue not to be killed in Penang Island, and our project works there and helping us really to be able to develop. So if they were to go onto Facebook and follow us, we're on there under International Aid for Protection of Animals, or they can go onto our website, which is www.iapwa.org. So they would find the Living Legacy campaign on there, and it would be amazing just to see people that were saying, I'm with you on this. Okay, I might not want to climb Kilimanjaro necessarily, and I might not want to necessarily set up my own charity, but I want to be part of it, and I really want to to join your team and your tribe and kind of get involved. So the Living Legacy campaign is the way in which people can obviously invest and financially, support the work we do. For those that are into adventures, we've got Adventures for Animals that they can join. We've also got I Love Hiking and Dogs. We also have an auction, our lovely Auction for Animals, a manager who's also a volunteer runs, and that's under Auctions for Animals. And that's another group on Facebook that they can join. And every single month we have a secondhand auction that they can bid for a range of lovely items and support us in that way. And we also have loads of volunteering that people can do as well. We've just on our Facebook page under IAP, we've just put out a video actually for in recognition of Volunteer Week, and we have a whole range of ways in which people can get involved. One role of which is we're looking for community coordinators. So we're looking for one person in each county of the UK, one person who wants to be a community coordinator, who really wants to step it up, a notch in terms of involvement, and be part of, be a really key part of our team. And essentially each community coordinator in each county would help to be able to grow a small volunteer team in their area and really be our mouthpiece, I guess, in that particular county, in terms of being able to raise awareness, build a team, being able to fundraise and raise donations. So they're spreading the work of what we're doing in that particular county. And once again, recruiting and building, a team of more people who individually want to make a difference. So all of this ethos is around, being able to show that, one person can make, a really big difference. So whether or not it's someone joining and doing some fundraising in a county, or whether it's someone that wants to become a community coordinator, anything like that. We've got some other roles on the website as well. We've got our adventure coordinator roles through Adventures for Animals. We're looking for a shop manager at the moment, someone with e-commerce experience to help with an amazing range of merchandise we have to be able to raise funds too. So whether people want to donate or whether they want to donate their time or donate a lot of their time in terms of training for something like Machu Picchu or Kilimanjaro, however they want to help, we'd love to have them in the team. If they're passionate about animals like we all are, then they found the right place. We'd love to have them involved with our work.
Wonderful. And I've seen the website for all of you out there that are listening. And there are so many opportunities, and there's so much information there. It's really, really lovely. It's a lovely website, and there's so many things you can do. There's a shop and all sorts of things, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's lovely. It's very, very nice. And I'm sure there's something that all of us, in our own way, in our own small way or our own big way, depending on people's circumstances, of course, can do something. Um, if their heart is open for it, I'm sure there's something that they can find to do to help. And as you say, leave a legacy with leaving something on this planet while you are here, in fact, also to, mark your existence. I think it's always something beautiful when you do something and it actually makes a huge difference. And you may only think of it as a small thing, but it can make a huge difference to someone else's life,
Thank you.
like you are. And thank you again. It's an absolute pleasure, Nicky, to have you and for sharing your beautiful stories. And I wish you all the very best in all of the things that you do.
Thank you for having me on, and it's been so lovely to chat. I can't believe it. I think about an hour's
Yes.
It's been so lovely just to chat, and I'm really grateful for inviting me to share this platform with you and just talk about our work and to open up other people to be able to get involved, to give them that opportunity to help us and make a difference as well. So I'm really grateful. Thank you.
It's important. I think you're doing such wonderful work, and the more sort of people know about it, the more people that can get involved. And that is something I think that's such a good thing with technology these days, that it allows us to sort of filter through the whole world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, I wish you all the very best, and come again and tell us all about your new project, and actually come back after you've been on your fantastic trip to Kilimanjaro.
Oh, I would love to. Or maybe even once I've done Kilimanjaro and the Sahara trek as well.
Yes, come. Oh, that would be
them.
fantastic. Do come and tell us how that
Yeah,
went.
I would love to.
All the best. Take care, Nicky.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Nicky Stevens. Phenomenal work, really. And it just goes to show you what dreams are able to do for other people, our own dreams. Fantastic, really. And I want to thank you again sincerely for taking the time to spend with me and my guests. It is so, so appreciated. Until next time, do something nice, do something beautiful, and cherish yourselves and those you love. Take care. And lots of love.
Thank you for listening to Secrets for an Inspirational Life, brought to you by your host, Mimi Novic. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and see you in the next episode. For more information about Mimi Novic and her books, music, and inspirational work, take a look at her website, www.miminovic.co.uk.